How did Mary Surratt end up on the scaffold? Was it her love for the South or her son chickening out on the trial? The tale of her death, or maybe her afterlife, is a haunting one. Let's set the scene up a bit first. Surratt was undoubtedly sympathetic to the Southern cause, and she was once married to a secessionist tobacco farmer. After she was widowed, she rented out her Maryland farm and tavern and began running a boarding house in Washington, D.C. to make ends meet. The house was situated at a convenient spot for sending urgent communications, and pretty soon Confederate agents began showing up there. Then there was Mary's son, John Surratt, who was at the very center of the clandestine spiderweb that began to form around the Surratt boarding house. While some historians have speculated that Mary may have been innocent, her son, John Surratt, was undeniably guilty. During the Civil War, John began mailing messages on behalf of the Confederate side, and he developed a number of ingenious methods for hiding secret mail. Through his secretive activities, John Surratt soon got to know John Wilkes Booth, who became a regular at the Surratt boarding house. Before long, John Surratt was personally involved in a plan to kidnap the president, a plot that would eventually turn into a murder. Although he admitted his involvement in the plot in the years after the assassination, unlike his mother, he would get off scot-free. After the murder of Lincoln was carried out, Booth escaped the theater, but was later gunned down while hiding out in a barn in Virginia. Investigators discovered the Surratt boarding house's role in the plot straight away, and after they caught one of the plotters there, Mary was arrested. John Surratt, on the other hand, was already a suspect for a different crime. He would run and keep running to Canada, to Rome, and even to Egypt. The authorities would catch up with him eventually, but in the immediate aftermath of the murder, Mary was the one left to endure the wrath of a country in mourning. Although Mary protested that she knew nothing about what the men were actually up to, a tavern keeper who leased property from her claimed that she was directly involved. According to the Washington Post, the keeper reported that Mary had asked him to prepare guns for Booth and another accomplice on the day of the murder. To prevent any trouble, the conspirators were tried in a military court rather than by a normal jury, and there they were found guilty and sentenced to hang. Whether or not the tavern keeper's testimony proved her guilt, Mary's friendly connection to the conspirators certainly looked pretty suspicious.
Ma'am, all I know about you is what I read in the papers. It's not flattering.
Booth and Mary had gotten on particularly well, and the two had sometimes hung out socially, independent of the others. Mary's fierce love for the South was also perhaps unfairly brought up in court. While some have claimed that the trial was a farce and should not have been carried out by the military, according to historian Thomas Turner, the court actually asked that Surratt be shown mercy. After all, no woman had ever been executed by the U.S. government before. 5 of the 9 commissioners recommended leniency. President Andrew Johnson, on the other hand, took a hard line on the issue, famously stating that Mary had, quote, kept the nest that hatched the egg. Some of Mary's supporters came forward to defend her at her trial, including several priests. Her most loyal defender, however, was her daughter Anna, who stood outside the White House demanding to see the president on her mother's behalf. Her request was denied. Newspapers from that time report that bystanders were moved to tears by Anna's pleas. It was later reported multiple requests had been made to President Johnson that Mary should be saved. The requests weren't being made just because she was a woman. They were also because of her age, as she was in her 40s. President Johnson, however, claimed he could not save her because he believed it would set a bad precedent. All hope lost, Mary was marched to the scaffold dressed in black. Before she dropped, she is reported to have said, "Don't let me fall, hold on." Mary's son John, nowhere to be seen, was described as a coward by a New York Times report on the execution. After his mother's death, John Surratt was dragged back to the States from Alexandria, Egypt in 1867. Unlike his mother, he was acquitted after being tried by an ordinary jury, possibly because some of the jurors were from the South and were sympathetic toward John, according to the Smithsonian Magazine. Among historians, the jury is still out as to Mary's guilt. Many think the hysteria surrounding Lincoln's death, the absence of her son, and the harsh decisions made by Andrew Johnson are all to blame for her sentence. Grant Hall, where Mary Surratt and the 3 other condemned prisoners were once housed, is believed by some to be haunted by Mary's unhappy ghost.